This is Star Wars Bounty Hunter. We're here on Xbox Series S. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. It's time to step into the shoes of Jango Fett. Bring your bounty, dead or alive. It's a third-person action-adventure game from the old days of Star Wars games. It's kind of neat. You're jumping, like I said, into the shoes of the primary Fett that became the prime clone of the Grand Army of the Republic, and you're hired to capture a deranged Dark Jedi. You do this across several different missions, which are split into chapters, where you get to visit some familiar Star Wars locations, and battle a ton of enemies. Like, this game is sort of chock full of combat and things to blast and things to do. There's actually quite a lot of depth behind this one in terms of like what you're doing in your missions and everything like that. And you know what? There's actually a few surprises behind this one too that you might not be aware of, especially if you take the time to actually go and accomplish the bounties that you have set forth. And yeah, pretty cool. Let's dive in and start blasting things. What are we getting here? 1440p, 60 FPS. And it is smooth, action-packed, looks clean, offers rather fluid gameplay, and that original gameplay style, which is pretty difficult. You know, you kind of forget just how wild some of these games can be, especially an area like this level that I took as a prime example here, because you're just sort of overwhelmed with enemies. It's seriously, like, the game has it's pretty easy going, you feel pretty intense, and then it definitely amps up with its difficulty as you continue to play. And you know, you only get 5 lives per level, and then you gotta like restart the level from the beginning, which could be a little tantalizing, especially for this particular mission where there's quite a bit of a difficulty curve to it. So it's largely a linear experience, but I guess the real change up comes from you doing your bounties. So there's like this sort of system here where it could be like, oh, does this guy have a bounty? You post your bounty, and then you go in and you know, depending on how they want them, you take them dead or alive. It's totally up to you and how you want to approach the situation, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, you get to really, if you're into Jango Fett, like you're into this character, you really kind of get to a deep dive into the lore, and it's sort of a neat fleshing out of this character, especially some of the characters from basically episode 2 from the bounty hunter perspective. You get to meet some familiar faces. It's actually quite interesting if you have ever wanted to get an idea more of this character, and you know, using this Mandalorian Rage or unleashing the full potential of this cool suit that doesn't seem to deflect that many bullets. There's something that's supposed to be, you know, powerful in that. Now, is it canon in the modern era? Probably not, but it is actually quite interesting, especially if you're a prequel fan, because you just get this sort of, I guess you would say, deep dive into this character where you're sort of like, oh wow, no, there's actually kind of a lot going on under the hood. You get a little bit of an understanding as to like some of the dynamics with, well, you know, Count Dooku and stuff. It's actually kind of interesting. It really genuinely is. Yeah, so you do like acrobatic maneuverings, you got a cool jetpack, you got a bunch of different abilities you can use. It builds up to the events of Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, like I mentioned. You get to go to some cool places, really seedy locations in the Star Wars galaxy, places familiar, some that might be a little bit surprising. Actually a good level of twists and turns in this one in terms of just like some of the crazy places you get to go and see. And yeah, it's kind of fun, and as I did say, you know, there's some little secrets in this one too if you spend the time to get things done, or maybe you want to use some retro old codes to unlock certain things. That's totally up to you as well. But I think they kind of have some fun with this one. It is quite challenging, again, like it actually is kind of like annoyingly challenging at times. I mean, I'm not playing perfectly well at this point, but yeah, kind of moving through this level, it was certainly quite a challenge, because some of the levels just kind of like stretch on, and there's a lot of a lot of chaos to them, but they definitely allow you to be kind of like the bad guy, right? Like, I mean, you're not necessarily an evil character to any degree, but you're the bounty hunter. You're doing things like a bounty hunter would do. Your morals are a little skewed, right? I mean, you're basically choosing how you want to tackle the scenarios. There's usually a bunch of, like, civilians, too, in the backdrop, and you get to kind of select how you want to go about tackling any scenario. Okay, that was really, really bad there. And it's just kind of cool, because you do get that sense of freedom being like, okay, do I want to go do bounties? Do I just want to work through the mission? You know, am I blasting things? It's pretty linear, as I've said, but there is also, like, a little bit of a confusion sometimes of where you're headed. Especially if you're trying to, like, revisit this after a long time, because this came out, like, a couple decades ago. So there's definitely going to be a lot of blanking out if you haven't touched it since, or if you're coming into it for the first time. The level design can be a little, I want to say, like, overwhelming to some degree. Like, there definitely can be some challenges there as you try to get used to it. Like, the controls are a lot better here, for sure. The camera is a lot better here, but it's still got some spots that could be a little tough to maneuver through in that, but I think largely they've done a decent job of cleaning this one up. Some of the sound stuff's a little weird. Like, I have the music essentially turned off because, you know, Star Wars and all that stuff, but yeah, then the blaster sounds are, like, really, really quiet, and, you know, there's no, like, subtitles or anything for cinematic, so, like, it would have been cool to get, like, a little bit more quality of life things, kind of like, I guess you would say also, you know, using that checkpoint system instead of just being like, you only have X amount of lives. Unless there's some kind of choice system thing that I'm not seeing in the game, it seems like you're sort of just stuck with this, like, archaic, kind of, like, survival system, which just makes the game a little unnecessarily ridiculous at times, where you're sort of like, wow, I barely made that, and yeah, it's a little crazy. It could be definitely overwhelming, but it is really cool to be, you know, like, Boba Fett. Like, it's actually pretty sweet. You get to, sorry, not Boba Fett, Jango Fett. I keep saying that over and over and over again. It's hilarious. I'll sit there and I'll catch myself and I'll be like, no, Jango Fett, Jango Fett. But my mind just goes to Boba Fett. I don't know if that's because Boba Fett I've just known longer. Well, it wouldn't be that much longer considering how old I am. But anyways, it is just kind of funny, like, my mind just always sort of goes to that. It's always just like, I never think of Jango as much, which is weird, because, like, Jango's pretty cool too. The dual pistols, the cool fun selection of weapons. I know, obviously, his kid there, you know, Boba Fett obviously has longer history in Star Wars and stuff, and all that, but, like, this character is just plenty cool too, and it is kind of weird that I just literally always have, like, a bit of a blanking on this character for some reason, naming convention wise. It doesn't even make sense. It really doesn't at all. Yeah, and I just do it over and over and over again, and that's on me. But it's neat, this game too, because it comes from a time where in gaming you could basically do, you know, these experiences where you're focusing on, like, an individual character like Jango Fett here, and you don't really get these types of games anymore because, you know, it's too long for game development, too much work, so you don't get really these smaller, tighter packages that kind of provide little extra exposés into, you know, individuals. And that in itself is actually, to me, like, a big shame, because it could be really fun having, like, a neat little spin-off thing to dive into and expand the lore. That was the neatest thing for me, really, with this one, was kind of getting, like, seeing that fleshing out of, well, Jango Fett's character. And there's secrets that are hidden as well in the levels. There's other secrets, too, but yeah, it's really, really quite interesting. Like, if you kind of are somewhat into Jango Fett as a character, or at least just kind of the bounty hunting side of things for Star Wars, especially leading into Episode 2, this one really does genuinely expand upon the characters in very, very interesting ways. Like, you kind of get a little bit of, like, oh, okay, this is what they were going for. Especially in the time where, you know, George Lucas would have been certainly having some level of interaction with this, you know what I mean, in development, would have been to some degree having input and direction to actually have this all tie in, I would say this would be, at the time, a bit of a canon-like linked experience. Oh, come on, I actually have to go down here and kill some of these guys. You gotta be kidding me. It's just more work for me as I gotta fly back up again. Unbelievable. Genuinely unbelievably annoying. Okay, here we go. Wait, is there something cool here? Rockets. That's what I'm talking about. Let's get some of that firepower. Actually, it does seem like the Series S has some little dips here or there when things get really chaotic, but yeah, it doesn't seem like that bad. It all seems pretty fluid and smooth. But yeah, so this one is really, honestly, quite interesting. It is a genuinely distinct Star Wars game, the likes of which we really don't get anymore. But it's also very much a game of its time. And that, I think, could make it a little bit more difficult for the new audience to really get into this one, because they just... Like, it looks really good visually. Like, I do firmly believe if you go and you just bump up a lot of older games with a better, like, resolution quality, those old textures still shine, still look great. You give it a higher fluidity, it feels a lot better. That's all you need for some of these older games. I mean, you know, obviously I would love if they took things like a step further in regards to like some of these ports and stuff, but it's mostly just nice to have these older games playable and available on modern hardware. That is the biggest thing to me, is just the really the availability of these games to be able to enjoy once again, I think is kind of quite spectacular. And yeah, it's kind of nice because it just allows new people to play something that's like pretty awesome and then play it in a way that feels more natural to the current era. I mean, the environment designs and everything like that, this is certainly a game of its time. Like, this is very early 2000s, right? And it's gonna play like a very early 2000s game if they're not sitting here and doing big overhauls to it, which they didn't. And, you know, to a degree that's fine, but just, again, some little quality of life improvements here or there would have been kind of nice. Like I said, they did, to their credit, improve the, you know, visuals and the camera and everything like that and the controls, which were really hard spots for these ones. But yeah, just like the amount of enemies and stuff like that, and this can get really, really overwhelming, and I could see a lot of people literally not being able to finish this out of, like, frustration. And it's definitely going to take a lot of work for some people to actually be able to, like, survive it and then make their way through this one in a regular setting scenario, which I don't think is quite ideal. Like, we have the technology to make this a little easier going. So, because it is sort of funny, like, on the Xbox side of things, you know, this is what we get for this game, right? But if you're on the PlayStation, I don't know if they're delisting it or if they're keeping it, but, like, they have a PS2, like, emulated version. And, you know, those things tend to come with, like, rewinds and stuff like that. And I guess it's more from a purist perspective. I'm sure people are happy that it's exactly like it was back in the day for difficulty and everything like that. But, yeah, and again, I don't know if it's, like, the hardest thing in the world. It's just more, like, a little overwhelming at times, for me at least. I was like, wow, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of enemies. This is really challenging. And I like to think of myself as like a bit of a more advanced kind of baseline. So I think more of what other people potentially jumping in and playing this for the first time would kind of feel like. And that's where I'm kind of going off of the thing where I'm like, this is definitely a hard scenario that I don't think everyone will be able to easily or even casually kind of handle. Okay, is everybody dead here? Just making sure. There's supposed to be a door thing that kind of opens so that we could progress. But I'm thinking I might have missed somebody and need to kill them. Yeah, I haven't had anything, like, not allow me to progress yet. Did we come in this way, or is this the way I'm supposed to go? Yeah, sometimes you're just sort of like, am I killing everyone to progress? Or, yeah, anyways, we're good. We're good to go. Yeah, I certainly like the style of it. I like the idea of it. It'd be cool to get more games like this where you play as a character who, as I had mentioned, isn't necessarily the greatest of people. Like, he's not, you know, a super nice kind of guy. Like, you just go and mow people down. But it's kind of awesome just being this tough, powerful bounty hunter that's just kind of blasting his way through a small town setup, but like how many people live on this this prison like asteroid? I feel like I've killed a small like society of people basically. It's sort of wild. What's also hilarious is I'm just mowing through this, but I had so much trouble doing this on a stream recently, which is kind of funny. But I'm just like casually kind of like rolling through it in the best of ways. So good for me. I will say that. Yeah, that is for sure. You're supposed to get over there. Anyways, I think there is definitely something to enjoy with this one. I think you can have a lot of fun diving into what this has to offer. I think you can enjoy the challenge of it, but maybe also, like, not necessarily love the challenge of it. And it offers distinct planets, which you always expect out of Star Wars. It offers distinct challenges, which you also would love to see in Star Wars. And it's just a neat character perspective and whatnot that you get to dive into. I think to some degree you're going to have like a working interest in like the bounty hunting thing or Jango Fett in general, because it is 100% focused around this character and this adventure through very specific places in the prequel era, right? So you very much need to have that interest in this dynamic, and that will allow you to kind of be more into it and, you know, face the challenges here. But I would say it's pretty solid. It's a fun game. It's got some neat stuff to it. I like the level of, you know, sort of style to each of the places. It's kind of cool because it really very much is of that time period. It's not trying to be anything else other than that, and I don't know, it's kind of a neat game from a historical standpoint. I always find these Star Wars ports sort of fascinating because as I've mentioned before, many times in doing videos and stuff, we used to get so many Star Wars games when I was younger. So many Star Wars games when I was young. And we just don't really get that anymore. You barely get the odd Star Wars release, and when you do get it, it's gotta be like a very tightly polished, well set up experience to make sure they're kind of maximizing their potential gains on this franchise, which is a bit of a shame because, you know, it was cool to get quirkier, more experimental type things like this game back in the day. And I feel like game development doesn't allow for something, especially with the Star Wars IP, to not be anything but massively ambitious. And that is a shame because then you don't get all these different weird projects like this. I can't believe I died here and I'd actually have to restart the entire level. Isn't that crazy? Like, could you imagine having to literally restart an entire game? At least everything loads insanely fast and you get into it right away. But, like, just imagine in the modern era having to restart, like, whole levels and stuff unless it was the game that was specifically all Souls-like. It would drive you crazy. But no, I think they captured the atmosphere and the style of Star Wars really effectively. And I don't know, it's really quite neat. The Series S, a little bit more suffering performance-wise than other things, but it's cool. It's fun, it looks good, it's fluid targeting. You know, I like how everything kind of plays out here. I think it's quite a lot of fun. And I think you can dive into this one and find it kind of interesting. But yeah, good luck getting through some of the difficulty stuff in this game. It is actually like a pretty challenging, tantalizing kind of thing to do. But, you know, you get that bounty going, you might unlock something a little fun, a little secretive, little nice surprises throughout this experience. Okay, well, I got him. It was dead or alive, right? Alright, well, he's gone. That's why I say the RoboCop type thing, because you literally get like this RoboCop type vision, which is sort of funny. Just gonna go ahead and push this guy off the cliff into oblivion and that, and how's he swimming when he's doing the wave thing? How's he doing that when he's you know, dead from the poison dart? Make it make sense. Fun.